also just like, we are the petitioner, the respondents of case. We are representatives for the Law Department of Gotham City. My name is Trey Sanabria, and my co-counsel today are Karina Tulevich and Charlotte Herson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Today we have prepared a written appearance for the convenience of the court with the spelling of each of our names, the names of each of our witnesses, and the names of the students who will portray each witness. And with Your Honor's permission, I will tender a copy to opposing counsel and to the bench.
Please do. Proceed, Mr. Sanabria.
Thank you. We have also prepared a packet of documents which we may introduce into evidence today, as they have been marked for identification. With Your Honor's permission, I will tender a copy to the bench and to the opposing counsel.
Yes. Thank you.
And with that, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed with opening statements.
Go ahead, Mr. Sanabria.
Your Honor, the Gotham City Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development is an administrative agency of the City of Gotham, and as such, the rules by which it operates in administering rent-controlled apartments owned by the city underwent a stringent process of development, including the notice and comment period required by law. The regulations which resulted from that process have stood unchallenged for many years because they are as fair as written as well as in their application in this case. These regulations, Your Honor, as we will see when they are introduced into evidence, will show that a person who feels themselves entitled to succession privileges to a rent-controlled apartment must show two things. One, that they were in a familial relationship with the former tenant for a period of 2 or more years, and two, that the person occupied the apartment in question with the former tenant for a period of 2 or more years as their primary residence. According to the rules and regulations that have been in place for many years, the burden of proving these things is on the person claiming the privilege. We would also like to emphasize that it is a privilege to succeed in a rent-controlled apartment. There is no property right in this case. There is simply no constitutional property right to succession privileges in a rent-controlled apartment. What the evidence will show today is that the petitioner had knowledge of the requirements of the regulations, had an opportunity to submit documentation in his favor, and failed to submit it. The petitioner failed to provide adequate proof that he was in a familial relationship as listed in the rules and regulations, and failed to provide adequate proof that the apartment in question was his primary residence for a period of 2 or more years, even though he had ample opportunity to do so. Now, the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development, or the DHPD, is not a heartless, soulless agency. While the regulations do not require the DHPD to do anything other than accept the documentation that the applicant provides, the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development takes an additional step through its own staff of investigators. The evidence will show today that in this case, the lead investigator for the DHPD undertook the investigation. When the investigation was over, and after a passage of over a month and a half, where the petitioner could have submitted additional documentation on his own behalf and failed to do so, the Department of Housing Preservation made the decision reasonably with the evidence that they had gathered, and not arbitrarily or capriciously, to deny the petitioner's application. For these reasons, Judge Hilowitz, at the conclusion of this hearing, lead DHPD counsel Charlotte Herson will be asking this court to uphold the determination made by the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Proceed, plaintiff, with your first witness.
Yes. The petitioner calls Finley Adams to the stand.
promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated. Speak clearly. State your name.
My name is Finley Adams. I live at 134 West Huron Street, apartment 109, for 50 years.
And how do you know Miss Barbara Stone?
Barbara Stone has been my neighbor for 50 years, in the apartment adjacent to mine.
How well did you know her? Did you ever talk to her?
Yes.
And what did you talk to her about?
We talked about her life in Harley, current events, and kind of gossiped about the other tenants.
What people have you observed coming and going from Miss Stone's apartment over the last 2 years?
I've seen the delivery men, her nurse Rivers, and her nephew Harley.
And what have you observed about this nurse?
Rivers.
Yes.
She was kind of like, she was always like looking around, and she always was asking for gifts and money.
And did Nurse Rivers ever leave early?
Yes, Barbara would send her home because she preferred the company of her nephew Harley.
And what did you observe about Harley's coming and going?
He started moving things in about early 2016, about February, I think.
And how did he get into the apartment?
Well, Barbara gave him the key.
And what was your reaction to Harley moving into his aunt's apartment?
I was skeptical.
Objection,
at first.
relevance? Can you repeat the question?
What was your reaction to Harley moving into his aunt's apartment?
Sustained.
Let's turn your attention to DHPD investigator Blake Wards. How are you familiar with Blake Wards?
Well, he was the DHPD investigator that came to question me on how long Harley has been living here.
And what did he ask you?
He asked me how long I've been noticing Harley.
And what did you respond with?
I told him he started moving in early 2016.
And how did investigator Wards respond to what you said?
He did tell me I was lying, and told me that he was going to put me out and kick me out of my apartment. And he also, he threatened me that he was going to put me out of my apartment.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Respondent? Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. You were close friends with the previous tenant, Miss Barbara Stone, at apartment 110, 126, 34 West Huron Street in Gotham, Nirvana, correct?
Yes,
And you knew her well?
yes,
You testified on direct that you saw the petitioner, Harley Davidson, start coming around and moving things into apartment 110 in early 2016, yes?
yes,
Yet you also admit that you saw the petitioner come and go a lot during that time period.
yes,
And you stated previously that most nights the petitioner would stay in the spare room of Miss Stone's apartment, correct? Mr. Adams, would I be correct in saying there is no window between your apartment and Miss Stone's that showed what she was doing?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Overruled.
Your Honor, invention of facts as well.
Pardon?
Invention of facts.
Your Honor, I was questioning it. I'm not inventing the fact, I'm just simply asking for it, the information.
Sustained, overruled. Overruled.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
yes,
Would I be correct in saying there's no window between your apartment and Miss Stone's that showed what she was doing?
yeah,
And there's no closed-circuit TV that allowed you to see into her apartment?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for an invention of facts again.
I believe that the witness can testify whether he knows whether there was any closed circuit camera that would enable him or her to see what was going on in the next department.
Thank you. You weren't living with Miss Stone, were you?
It's not.
Mr. Adams, you have vision problems that require you to wear thick glasses, isn't that true?
Yes.
And you don't like wearing them, do you?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
I'll
Your Honor.
allow it, just subject to relevance. You may proceed on a limited basis right now.
Thank you, Your Honor. Shall I repeat the question?
Yes.
And you don't like wearing them, do you?
No.
Mr. Adams, you also have people frequently repeat things to you because you do not hear well, do you?
No.
But Mr. Adams, with poor vision, poor hearing, and no closed-circuit TV, it is still your testimony that the petitioner spent most nights in Miss Stone's spare room.
Well, yeah, because the walls are
Thank
so...
you. Isn't it also
Yeah,
true?
Excuse me, he didn't finish his response.
The walls are so thin you could hear everything.
Thank you. Isn't it also true that you missed chatting with the petitioner when he was away for long stretches of time?
Yes.
And isn't it correct that you're convinced the petitioner is living with his fiancée?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Petitioner calls Sage Wisner, please.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? State your name and speak clearly, please.
Sage Wisner.
Please be seated.